What's up, everybody? Welcome to the show. Today, we're going to talk about anger and how to start dealing with that in a healthier way. How does somebody get to the point where they have uncontrollable anger and really de-shame people that struggle with anger and hopefully give them a few tools and ideas to help better their lives. So first of all, when people struggle with anger, usually it has nothing to do with them as a person. It has everything to do with the environment that they were raised in and the examples of anger typically that they were shown in their life. A lot of times when people struggle with expressing anger or have really bad tempers is not because they're an angry person. It's because they don't know the warning signs, the early warning signs of what happens when they start to experience anger. So what happens is let's just say here's an example would be, mom, dad, uncle, grandma, grandpa were a very bad example of what anger looks like. And because anger is often has what we'll call perpetrator energy, and what I mean by that is like when when it's expressed, a lot of times it's expressed in a way that hurts somebody else. So we see it as, wow, we don't want to be like that. We don't want to cause that sort of pain on somebody else, especially someone that we love. The problem that happens is like when we aren't able to express anger in a healthy way, what happens usually is we don't have boundaries. It's one of the things that fuels the ability to set boundaries. It kind of gives you, it shines a light on where you need boundaries in your life. When somebody crosses the line, it's very impactful to you. You need to be able to say, hey, that didn't feel good. As I've said on previous podcasts, ask, insist, enforce, and leave. That's kind of like the 4 steps of creating a boundary. So anger is kind of the driving force that allows you to set those boundaries when done in a healthy way. So, for example, somebody that grew up with, somebody that used anger in an unhealthy way, a lot of times will develop the association that anger is bad and it's not okay to feel anger. So they'll spend a lot of time and use a lot of energy suppressing or repressing anger. And the unfortunate part about when you suppress or repress any emotion is whatever you resist persists. So you can never get rid of emotions that you push down. I use this example on a few other podcasts, but whenever you try to resist a certain emotion or keep it in your shadow, as I like to say, you want to imagine trying to stuff a beach ball under the water, right? And it takes a certain amount of concentration and energy to keep that beach ball stuff down, as opposed to being able to allow it to come up in a healthy way. You can imagine how much more energy you'd have if you were able to do that. So again, to kind of take away a little bit of the shame around somebody that maybe struggles with anger, it's like, hey, it's not your fault. This is an adaptive response that has been trained into you based usually on your environment and your relationships of when, you were growing up. And anybody that is listening that, struggles with this, I'm sure can think of or point to in your own life that person. And usually there's somewhat of an impactful caregiver. So, what to do and how to start integrating anger back into your life in a healthy way? Well, first thing that I recommend doing is getting a coach or getting somebody that can really start helping you walk through these scenarios, because it can be kind of scary at first. Anger is a sympathetic has a sympathetic tone to it. So in other words, it's like it's a mobilizing charge. So a lot of times some people will say it's like playing with fire. It can get out of control really easily. And I'm sure people that have difficulty with anger know exactly what I'm talking about. So having somebody help you through it is a great place to start. But if you don't have somebody to help you through it, here's what I would suggest you do. start developing a mindfulness practice. And I say this on a lot of my podcasts, and I'm a big believer in meditation, and not in the way that most people maybe explain it in. And what I mean by that is, whenever I sit down for like some mindfulness or some meditation, I use it as a check-in, right? I'm not just trying to clear my mind. What I'm trying to do is just check into with myself. Like, hey, what state am I in? Do I have any areas in my body that are holding tension? And where is that? And why might that be? And when you can start tuning into your body a little bit more, a lot of times what you'll start to notice is a very common cyclical or repeating body sensations with regards to and having connection to certain emotions. So once you start this mindfulness practice, which again, it's a practice, could be anywhere from like 2 minutes to 20 minutes a day, and you start connecting to the idea of like, oh wow, I have this tightness in my chest, I have this burning in my stomach, I have, tightness in my throat or my shoulders or my arms or whatever it may be, you can start noticing after you have, let's just say, an episode of anger where you didn't express it in a healthy way. Notice where you feel it most prominently in your body. A lot of times, emotions have connections to our body, right? There's a lot of things. There's actually three things that come with whenever we experience emotion. A lot of times there's a physical sensation that will happen. There are emotions or feelings that come up, and then we'll have thoughts around it, right? And there's correlation between the three, and we want to start being able to separate those three things out, because they're three separate things. And a lot of times when we get triggered into anger, we will feel it in our bodies before we have thoughts. And for a lot of people, we don't really catch the anger until we say something, right? We end up yelling or saying something like we don't mean, and we feel bad about it 20 minutes later after our nervous system has regulated. We kind of like rethink the process. We're like, what the heck did I just say? And why did I just say that? So again, mindfulness practice, and then starting to connect, where do I feel it in my body? And then I'll kind of give you a little bit of a breakdown of like what actually is happening physiologically for you when you get into anger. So a lot of times when anger gets triggered, again, it's a sympathetically charged emotion. And whenever we're in our sympathetic system or sympathetic part of our nervous system, what happens is we're basically in fight or flight. We are perceiving threat, or we see a lot of challenge, but we also feel like we can either fight it or run away from it. And what happens when we're in sympathetic is our prefrontal cortex starts to go offline, and that's responsible for impulse control, a big part of that. So if you are in a sympathetically charged state of mobilization, and you're maybe fearing for your life, or your body's perceiving that there's a threat, and you don't have the ability to have impulse control, well, it would make sense why you tend to react the way that you react. And when you put on top of that, that typically you don't feel safe to feel anger, a lot of times you're going to push away or repress those anger feelings, the physical sensations, the actual feelings of anger in your body, until you get to the point where that beach ball, it's taking so much out of you to keep pushed under the water that it just comes out. The pressure relief valve goes off, and the emotions are released, a lot of times in a way that we just don't want them to be released. So the goal is to start actually reconnecting with your body, right? What are the antecedents or the things that I experienced before the outburst that you can start connecting to, in order to start noticing, oh my gosh, every time I get angry, before I actually get to the point where I yell, I start feeling a tightness in my chest, or my arms get tingly, my palms get sweaty, my heart uh, my heart rate starts to go up, I start to feel my breath shorten. And you can take a moment and pause and start to notice, oh wow, I am triggered. I am activated. I'm having an anger reflex right now. And you can pause and take a deep breath and realize it's like, oh, geez, I am in an activation right now. Just by doing that and noticing that you're in an activation, you then hold on to a little bit of your prefrontal cortex. And what that will allow you to do is regain self-control, regain impulse control, and start developing the tools to express anger in a healthy way. And you want to hear the healthiest way to express anger? You ready for it? I'm angry. It's that simple. And there's a big difference between expressing from a place where you're in control, I'm angry, to actually expressing from the emotion in your body, which is, I'm angry, right? You can feel the tone of voice that I have. There's emotion behind the other one. That's when I talk to my clients about expressing from an emotion or expressing from your prefrontal cortex or your green or your ventral vagal complex that is in control. You are able to express something, right? Express, insist, enforce, and leave, and eventually ramp up depending on the situation, of course. Sometimes there is a lot of danger, and in a lot of danger that can make you angry, and it's okay to express in that way. But for the most part, most of us express it in a way, when we're too stressed out. We've had a long day at work. Our kids are, just too much. We're getting to a point where we're going back and forth with our wife and our girlfriend, and we just lose it. And when you're able to start noticing sooner and sooner, again, with those physical sensations in your body, then you're able to start expressing it and tapping into that anger earlier and earlier, to the point where it's not to the point where, it just, again, the pressure relief valve goes out and you start yelling. So hopefully this was helpful. And again, just to kind of round it all out, if you have difficulty with anger, it's not your fault. A lot of this is just adaptive responses to, your environment when you were younger and the examples that you had, and not having the proper tools to actually start implementing this back into your life. So if this is you, or if you have a friend, send them this podcast. Maybe it'll help them out. But if this is you and this is something that you'd like help with, this is absolutely something I do with regards to working on self-control, self-regulation, and understanding your nervous system to help you really start to navigate your emotions better, so that you can, reclaim control of your nervous system and gain mastery back over your life. You can book a call. I have my Calendly link in my show notes if you're looking to learn more about how it is to coach with me one-on-one. And yeah, thanks for watching, you guys, and I'll catch you on the next episode.